Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
13 is over. Mothers, lock up your sons.
I love you and your brother more than anything in the world. Oh, Mom, you knew what was going on with all those clothes. I didn't know it was that far. I didn't have a mother when I was your age either. I know how hard it is. I do.
Andy. So, man, I wonder if you felt the same way watching 13 that I did. Like as these young women are parading across the screen, did you ever look at it and say, "My goodness, that looks just like Andy's daughter"? I thought that the whole time, and I thought maybe I'm going to start Maybe I'm going to start texting you as you were watching it. I knew when you were watching it. And I thought maybe I would start texting you, like, has your daughter, started doing the whippets, or has she started punching her best friend in the face? Or, has she, did you struggle at all watching 13 with a teenage daughter as you have?
I watched this trailer when the movie was, initially getting its theatrical release, and remember going, oh, I don't think I could handle watching that. That just looks like, every parent's nightmare sort of movie. And I didn't. And now that I actually have a teenage girl who's the age that, roughly the age of the girls in the film, I mean, it was like a nightmare. It was like nightmare fuel, everything in here. I was like, oh, no. It made me want to walk through her room in incredible detail and look for, are there any secret drug paraphernalia taped to the sides of her dresser?
Yes.
Anything I need to be aware of? Should I go through her bathroom cabinet? What's going on? Which of her friends is an Evie-like character that I need to start worrying about? I mean, I largely don't think I really actually need to worry, but it is one of those things where, I mean, the way that it depicts the realities of young kids going down these incredibly dark roads, I mean, it does make for a very challenging viewing, all the more so when you do have a young girl who is this age. It was difficult.
Yeah, I would say that's true. The only thing I can think of is, thank God my daughter is now an adult and out of the house. Like, that was the great relief. I could watch this with such freedom because she is this year going to be 20. She no longer really lives here. She is out in the world, and thank the Lord that I didn't have to watch this movie with someone of this age in my house.
You do have someone of this age in your house. Just because he's a boy doesn't mean that it couldn't happen to him too.
Yeah, different stuff.
Yes.
Let's say I would be more worried. There are other movies that depict the things that I'm worried about for him to go through, but I don't think I know his friends. I don't think there are any Evie-like friends that he has. And I just think fathers and daughters have a different relationship. You know what I mean?
Well, which is interesting because this movie really doesn't do much for depicting good father-daughter relationships. It's really mother-daughter in this film. So,
yeah.
So to that end, it was really just more, what's the daughter doing? Less about their relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we do have the worst. I mean, we have a little bit of dad, but he is not an aspirational father figure.
He's a rough character, roughly treated, which.
Well, true. And we do have two father figures, actually. We should say that for sure. One is the boyfriend. This is, was it Jeremy Sisto?
Yeah.
And the other, which is Travis Freeland, D.W. Moffat as Travis. So he's the one who's barely in here.
Yeah, just once.
Yeah.
Once physically, a few phone calls.
Yep. But nice car. Okay. So here we have...
Which everybody comments on.
Why are we doing this? It's a coming-of-age movie. That's the series we're talking about. Coming of age.
It is.
And man, do we know how to pick them.
And Catherine Hardwicke's, not just coming of age, but coming of age debuts. This is Catherine Hardwicke's debut feature film. She had been a production designer for a very long time before she decided to try her hand at directing. And she, I mean, as a production designer, when you look at the stuff that she's done, you're like, oh, I've seen some of those. I mean, she started in '86 with Thrashin' and Tapeheads and I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. And then it goes on from there to stuff like eventually Tombstone, Car 54, Where Are You?, Tank Girl, 2 Days in the Valley, The Newton Boys, Three Kings, Vanilla Sky, Laurel Canyon. Like, she was doing some seriously big and interesting films as the production designer before she switched and moved into directing. So I found that, like, I don't think I really knew how much work she had done in the production design world and what the films were until I was actually doing research on this. I'm like, wow, she had a much bigger career than I had realized. So it's exciting to see her making this transition into directing with this particular film.
And that this was her first film. Right.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the things I think is really fascinating, and just how this came about.
Yeah, hence the coming of age debuts.
Oh yeah, right. It's on the
Right.
tin.
It's on the tin.
It's on the tin.
Well, we'll talk more about the movie, but this movie was rated R upon its release for drug use, self-destructive violence, language, and sexuality, all involving young teens. And we are here to talk about all of that. Hey, you want to watch this movie and help us out? Well, you can. If you see the Apple or Amazon link to the movie in our show notes, just click on it. It will take you right to their site, and you can rent or buy the movie. When you do this, we get a little tiny piece in return.
We've got merch, truestory.fm/TNR merch. Oh, man, what do you do with this one? Tongue rings? Probably tongue rings. Maybe a close-up of a belly button piercing? Probably a belly button ring. Ugh, rough. Anyway, whatever it is, you'll put it on a shirt or a sticker or a mug or a mask or a pillow, especially a pillow, with everything else we're coming up with. truestory.fm/TNR merch.
We would love to feature audio reviews from you, our dear listeners. Just send us a short audio file to reviews at truestory.fm as soon as you watch the movie. We just might end up showcasing your voice on the show. We do record about 2 weeks in advance, so make sure you get it in early. And, again, reviews at truestory.fm.
Did you run out of steam on that one?
Yeah.
Well, what you might have been have found yourself exhausted about is thinking about how you're going to keep up with this 2-week lead time thing when you don't even know what movies we're talking about from one week to the next. Well, we have a solution. Just head over to our Letterboxd HQ page at letterboxd.com/thenextreel, and you can see our watch lists. You can see the upcoming movies we're talking about. You can see all of our reviews and links back to the shows. And when you're there at Letterboxd, the best social network for movie lovers, and you fall in love with it, you're going to decide, hey, I think I want to support the team, and I want to get rid of the ads, and I want to sign up for a pro or patron membership to do that. And if you do just that with the discount code NEXTREEL, you'll get 20% off, and this works for renewals as well.
Letterboxd has their memberships. We have ours as well. If you head to our website, you can become a member and support the show, support the podcast. We would appreciate it. You can support it either at a month-to-month level or at the annual rate. And you get all sorts of wonderful goodies, including all sorts of extra episodes. That's really the big thing that members get.
So many extra episodes, so many bonuses. You get access to our retake episodes that we do at the end of every series. You get access to our flick chart re-ranking episodes. There's also an extra monthly member episode that fills in a movie from a series that we've done in the past. I don't even remember what's coming up this month. What's coming up this month? Do you remember? What are we doing? Have we even told people yet? Yeah,
we haven't. No, we got to do the poll.
Oh my goodness, there's a poll.
Yeah, the poll will be out, if not close to closing, by the time this episode's released.
So many bonus episodes, and you get to be a big part of it, and so we appreciate your help. So all you have to do is head over to truestory.fm/TNR membership to learn more about our membership and our tiers. The most it'll cost you is $5 a month or $55 a year. So where do we start? Where do we start with 13? She starts so nice, young Evan Rachel Wood. She's just so nice. She's a good student, and yet the social pressures.
Kids.
Yeah, hanging out with good kids. Young Vanessa Hudgens is there, very young.
Wow, yeah. Didn't take long for her to then make her own switch.
Yeah, right. Boy, she ended up twisting the knot there too, didn't she?
Spring break, y'all.
So they're having a rough time, and in the social construct at school is rough. There is some aspiration. She wants to be a big shot. She gets They find that there's the handsome there are handsome boys. She wants to be a part of the handsome boys, and then she somehow gets connected with Evie, the ne'er-do-well of our story.
It's an interesting setup for the film, and I see the way that it played, and it's really interesting the way that the whole thing kicks off, because she really is. She and her friends are at a new school. And they are, or not a new school. It's like, they've moved up a grade and now they're in the middle school. And they, her brother's already there. He won't talk to her. It's like, you don't talk to the young kids. All the bigger kids are kind of, looking down on these new young kids. They're terrible. I mean, it's just a bunch of terrible older kids, the way that they treat the younger kids. It's I mean, I guess that certainly happens to a certain extent. But, yeah. And then she's drawn to this, incredibly popular girl, hot girl. All the boys love her, named Evie. And there's this draw to her, and that ability to have that kind of that power, that popularity. I mean, it really is the whole start of this film is about, I want that. How do I get to be like that so I'm not looked down upon like I am right now? And so it's an interesting journey that we have as we see her try to figure out, what can I do to move into that popular world? And it all starts with, a few brief conversations with Evie, who generally dismisses her and makes fun of her socks. And so she changes the way she dresses and everything. And then, when Evie gives her the fake number and stuff, and she kind of, in an interesting way, turns it around into something that helps her get connected to Evie. And I found that was interesting. Like, she actually goes to the place that Evie said, even though Evie had given her a fake number, and ends up like stealing some lady's purse. And that is the thing that kind of sets her in as, oh, you know what, you could be in our group. And it's an interesting line that she's willing to cross right there. That she kind of takes it like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want to be popular. They're stealing stuff in the store. I'm not ready for that. Oh, this lady just put her purse down next to me and isn't paying attention. And it's interesting. And what I found this film depicts really well is these little things that young people do, trying to be popular or, be cool or whatever it might be. And she so easily kind of steps into those things and becomes somebody that she never would have believed she was, 4 months earlier. And here she is, this person who's stealing stuff and just goes down this really dark road with Evie, who really is just an interesting antagonist, because she has so much, there's a lot of obvious draw to her and obvious problems that she incredibly has. But it's interesting to see the way that Tracy navigates that over the course of the film.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think one of the things that the film does really well is it really highlights the spirit of exploration gone wrong, right? Because, when you're a teenager, when you have teenagers, like, so much of what they want to do in growing up is explore and experiment with other stuff. Other stuff, largely, I think, that comes into their lives that maybe they've been told you can't do this until, or you shouldn't do this, ever. And so this movie is a movie about this young woman who discovers just how, and I'll say morally fluid she is, right? That, in terms of, like, she didn't see herself as somebody who would steal someone's purse or wallet, and yet there she was. She did it because at what cost comes popularity? She answers that question for herself through this sort of moral fluidity that she has. She discovers that she is, she probably never would have seen herself as a drug user, but then also discovers, wow, when you're hanging out with people that you think are really cool and they show you this thing and you try it and it's also really fun, that becomes another area of fluidity and exploration that you have. And I think that's one of the things that I think Evan Rachel Wood actually does really well, is even though much of the movie feels like it moves pretty fast and there are some roller coaster emotional changes that I think I struggle with, overall I think Evan Rachel Wood really plays that character as someone who is exploring the boundaries of her fluidity really well. I mean, she ends up having sex with this boy that she really likes. She's super enthusiastic when he says, "Can I?"
Did she have sex with him?
Well, maybe she just. There was something.
Yeah, I think that it's oral sex. I think she performs.
I think it's oral sex. Yeah, it's oral sex, and so they do that, and she doesn't seem to be saddled with any sort of regret or any sort of pain, as a result of emotional pain as a result of doing that. She seems to go right through it. At the same time, when Evie says, "You probably don't even know how to kiss," and then they have their the two girls have their kissing scene, and there is again an exploration of this fluidity. I think really. I believed it. I believed her journey through this exploration of fluidity. I think the movie does that well. It really,
I thought so too. I mean, it's an interesting journey in the ups and downs, and this ride that she's going on over these 4 months, kind of the course of a semester, basically. And as we start learning what's going on with Evie, as Tracy is going down this darker and darker hole, wanting to try these things, and getting nervous about it, but wanting to do it. She wants to be cool, and she keeps kind of pushing herself to the edge. And it's a really interesting and dark road that she ends up taking. And so much of it is. It's like that dance with the devil that she's doing. Like, these things are interesting to her because they're not allowed. And so she kind of keeps riding that line because there's an intrigue, and it gets darker and darker. But also it's like she starts making decisions that you start questioning, how much is this Evie, or is she just hit this point where she's just, unleashed and she doesn't know how to control herself anymore? By the time they're with their neighbor, Luke, and coming on to him, it's like, is Nikki, or is Evie really the one who's pushing so much, or is Tracy also there pushing to make that happen? And so she really does start feeling like she's going down this road that she just can't control herself. And I think that's one of the interesting things about the film, that it depicts this age where you don't have that wisdom, and they make these decisions and just don't know how to control it. And it very easily, turns into something that's just so much bigger than they ever intended. And she can't stop it. And that's what made this ride harrowing and very difficult as a parent, because you're watching her make these decisions that are just horrifying. And it's interesting to see, as we later in the film see, Holly Hunter playing the mother, her reactions as she starts figuring out what's going on. And she had thought, oh, they're stealing some stuff. And like, she kind of had a sense. And then you have that conversation when Tracy blows up, and it's like, how did you not know that we were doing these things? And she's just like, well, I figured it was some things, but I didn't know how far you had taken it. And that, right, I think, is the incredible shocking moment for Mom. And, there's a very interesting relationship there and interesting characters, because we'll definitely need to talk more about Mom too. But that's what I find so interesting, is that lack of control that she's a car with no brakes careening down the hill and just can't stop.
There's an interesting thing. Like, I kept finding myself wondering, like, what was going on in Evie's world that makes Evie such a, I guess, an adept controller of her own sort of fluidity in this moral context, right? Because, and we see this all the time, there is this bad influence that comes in and has the influence on our protagonist character. And our protagonist character, over the course of her arc, outpaces the challenges that are presented from the bad influence character, and it becomes just sort of unraveled in the process, right? I feel like that's what I was looking at here, and I couldn't help but look at Evie and think, why is Evie, and is it believable that Evie is outpaced and as stable as she is in her sort of level of degradation, right? She doesn't seem to fall apart. She's a pathological liar and a thief and a drug user, and she doesn't seem
dealer,
and she just seems super stable. Like there's no projected end point to her. She's just going to go on being a bad influence in somebody else's life now when they move to wherever they end up moving. This was the first time I watched a movie like this and had this thought, like, okay, I get it that we're watching Tracy and her fall, and we have to watch that fall because of her relationship with Evie, but is it believable that Evie is just going to move on? Like, what are the did you struggle with this at all? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, no, you're making sense. It's an interesting challenge the film has in how much do you take Evie down this road without having her turn into somebody who ODs in the end. And she's just pretty much an omnipresent sense of kind of corruption that she really ends up being.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I buy it because I think there are a variety of people. And I think we have a couple interesting characters that are depicted here. And I think as Evie, we see that she's lived this way for her whole life. This is just, there's nothing different about anything for her. You know, she's grown up with a mom who's, or her mom's gone. What did she, I don't, who knows what really happened to her mom, you know, if she was a
we get a couple of different, right.
Yeah, right. But obviously there is something that had happened because she's being raised by her cousin, played by Deborah Carr-Unger, who I thought was great in the small role that she had playing. I think that she works, she said she works as like a waitress, but I had a sense it was like at a strip club or something, the way that she was dressing, and doesn't care if Evie's drinking, and clearly is not there to parent her. You know, she's almost treating her like a big sister, and hey, I'm a stripper or work at a strip club. And so, you know what, you're going to be raised in a capacity like me. Like when Mel brings the two girls over to check and see what's going on and to drop Evie off, you know, she finds mom there with like this young boy, or not boy, but, you know, young teen that she's obviously doing drugs with or something. And so clearly it's already an unstable situation. And so I think that Evie has had that long enough where she's just kind of adapted to this lifestyle that she's living in, and you know, she has her way of getting through it and does what she needs to survive. And the interesting with Tracy coming into that is she's never lived with that sort of lifestyle. And so it becomes that journey of excess that she really falls into. And so that's where I felt like Evie really worked for me, because, and she really, what was so interesting is she really attaches to Mel and having a more stable home, and she wants to move in with them and all this sort of stuff, because she doesn't have as stable a life when she's living with you know, her cousin. Here at Mel's, she still is a terrible child and manipulative and lies, all that stuff, but she seems actually happier there, you know, and like I really did believe it. Like when Mel says that she's leaving her there, and you see her run out the door, and you have Tracy follow her.
Oh, you're talking about the end when she's I'm leaving you at your house with Brooke.
Yes.
So, yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly. And Tracy follows her out, and they're back by the dumpster, and Evie's just standing by the dumpster, just crying. It's like, I really felt that. Like she really thought that there might be a chance for her to find her version of more of a normalcy. But it wasn't going to happen, because she's not the sort of person that Mel can have in her house. And so that was interesting to me. I thought there was some interesting levels that we were getting with Evie as a character that showed her as a more robust character than just kind of the straight up always manipulative, always evil character that otherwise she is.
Well, I get it. And the payoff to that, though, is it feels like a punchline of more manipulation when she outs Tracy by telling Brooke where and Mel where everything is in Tracy's room. And she starts manipulating that it was actually Tracy who's the bad seed and not her, even though we, the audience, know that everything that everything that Tracy knew, Evie taught her. Evie was the one who instigated the piercings, the tongue piercing, the belly button piercing, like all of the stuff, talking about a tattoo coming soon. The fake ID, the drugs, obviously, like all of those things we know came from Evie, but that manipulation got turned around. And I'm left with this feeling that Evie's going to go on to this other place and just continue to be herself with a new, for lack of a better word, mark. In this case, the mark, I didn't know beat to beat whether the mark was Tracy or Mel in her manipulation. Clearly, she needed something, right? Well, clearly she needed some sort of fulfillment from her relationship with Mel, but I couldn't get a beat on whether it was that she was addicted to that sort of manipulation or found it was easier in some way, or she got more delight out of betraying Mel because, Mel was kind to her, but she still knew she could do whatever she wanted, sneaking out, et cetera, et cetera. Like, was that, did she just like that deviance? And you can't be deviant when somebody doesn't really care about you, as she was experiencing with Brooke. I don't know. And I'm not saying that at all to make it as a detractor of the movie. I actually found like that complexity felt pretty real. Like I enjoyed it, but it was hard.
But that's why I think it's so interesting, because it is complex and it is difficult. And I think there was a level of her, the hurt that she felt in getting left by Mel and largely Mel and kind of a more family lifestyle that she was kind of living over there, that she ended up taking it out on Tracy. We see her not having Tracy hop into the Jeep when she and all those boys drive up. We see her not returning Tracy's calls. And then all of the stuff happens where, and I don't know, like, I keep calling her mom, but did Brooke, her cousin, did she actually find her stash? And that was kind of I felt like Brooke had found the stash and was upset that she found out that, here's her kid, her cousin that she's largely taking care of, that is doing this stuff that she doesn't want her to be doing. And so Evie really kind of spins it and makes it seem like it's all Tracy's fault. Tracy's the one who got me into all of this stuff, and used that as a way to, one, get back at Tracy, but two, also to find a scapegoat so she didn't get into as much trouble. Because clearly Brooke is fairly clueless. I mean, we think Mel is pretty clueless, not realizing the extent to which Tracy has gone down this road. But Brooke is, naively clueless, when it comes to Evie, because she's not providing a stable place for Evie to handle anything. And she's very upset about what Evie says Tracy had actually taught her how to do. So it's an interesting manipulation that Evie has, but I think it's largely a way to also just get back at Tracy for the hurt that she ended up causing her because of the way that things ended.
Yeah. Do you feel like, my sense is that the movie is not sympathetic to either of the quote moms, right? To either Mel or Brooke. And
really?
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like, obviously Brooke is not a good mother figure. And her twist at the end, when she finally turns around and is like, "Oh, now I'm going to mother you. We found the stash," that made it feel a little bit unbelievable to me. I didn't care for it. Like it was a bit too, hard left turn given the experience we'd had with Brooke the whole time. Brooke is a hot mess. That she suddenly is aware that there even is a stash seemed out of left field to me. And
I don't know. I think there are people like this who, when they find that there is, who aren't necessarily great parents, when there's one little thing like this that comes up, it turns into their cause celeb, right? They go at it like, I cannot believe you've done this to my child. And it's like, it is like intense how some of these people find ways to accuse others and never look within. And I think that's largely what is happening here. Like she'll never see that her lifestyle, the way that she has chosen to kind of raise Evie, has led to any of this. And that's what I found so interesting. And for me, wholly believable about the way that whole scene played out.
Okay, it didn't communicate quite well enough for me on screen the way it did to you. It felt like a hard left, and so I struggle with it. I also struggle on the other side with with the film's portrayal of Holly Hunter as Mel. I should say I don't struggle with it. I think she's fantastic. I really think she's fantastic. And on this side of the family dynamic, I find the movie is like sufficiently portraying the complexities of life for this family, right? And the fact that Tracy is so susceptible to Evie's manipulations and to her own desires to be popular, how that is reflected through Holly Hunter, who is taken the tack of just trying to be a team and a partner and a friend and not so much a parent through the beginning, the start of the film. I think that was really solid, and that it might not have been a great choice from a parenting perspective, like that there was so little discipline, but also I think this is where Holly Hunter shines. For her, the major transition of realizing that she could not any longer be a friend and a partner and a teammate. She had to be a parent. And I think for a lot of us, like waking up to the fact that your child needs to be parented can come as a surprise and a really hard one. And but that is very much what I think Hunter is able to convey here. So for everything that I struggled with Brooks, the way Brooks' character was written, I didn't struggle with Mel.
Yeah. It is an incredible portrayal of a very complex role that she has to portray here, of this mom who is, as you said, kind of more the friend to her kid and is really struggling with the parenting side of it. And we see that come up a number of times when she just doesn't know how to do this. And I mean, it gets harder as kids get older because they become teenagers and they start having their own minds and want to do their own things and want to not listen to you. And it's, it's a real challenge, and trying to find the way to navigate that is hard. And I think that she carries that off, perfectly. And it's really interesting to see her struggle to make these decisions. And who does she call for advice? Do I call, do I talk to my psychic friend about it? Or do I talk to this other mom that's one of her friends who's, so poor that she and her daughter have to spend time living in a tent. They're pretty much homeless. Or calling her sponsor and talking to her. It certainly doesn't work when she tries to get dad to help. And that was for me such a painful conversation when she's on the porch talking to her dad or talking to her ex-husband about, like, she needs you. You're not hearing me. She needs to go stay with you. I can't do it. And it's just like that sense of abandonment that she has, like, we're in this together and you are contributing nothing and I'm left alone and I have to figure this out now. And that was really powerful because it's hard, and it turns into this thing where she has to just try to figure out how to make it work, and even when it's not. And that her depiction of that course of figuring out how the hell do I navigate this? It was for me just an incredible portrayal of a mother really struggling to sort through all this.
Yeah, I think so too. And it was funny that you bring up the astrologer friend, right? That and that scene where everything blows up and the astrologer friend, all she's trying to say is this family needs to heal. Like, there's nothing particularly woo-woo about what she's talking about, but she's just speaking actually the truth right here, that the family is broken and needs to heal, and nobody is in a place to hear it. It gets to that sort of like readiness for change. Like, has the movie significantly built a case that it's time to make a turn, and it hadn't, and that's where the conflict lives. And I think that works. That works pretty well for me.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Very well.
It's
very
good.
Well. I mean, Holly Hunter, she's just.
I mean, it's hard. Yeah, Holly Hunter is like, she's too good. Holly Hunter.
How dare she? She's, it's interesting because she goes through these periods where I feel like I don't see her a lot, or like in bigger things. But I mean, I guess she was busy through this whole period. I mean, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and Time Code in 2000, and Things You Can Tell Just by Looking at Her. And then in 2002, Moonlight Mile, Levity, and this in 2003, Little Black Book and The Incredibles 2004. So I guess, she's just one of those people that is always around. It's just sometimes I feel like I just don't see her a whole lot. I guess between like 2011, 2015, she kind of slowed down a little bit with not quite as many things, but still, she's a busy woman.
Well, and then, 2018, she starts doing a lot more TV, right? That's predominantly where she is for the last 2 or 3 years. Here and Now, Succession, Bless the Hearts, and Mr. Mayor. I haven't seen any of those things. I'm not a Succession user, but they're all like short runs, it looks like.
Yeah.
She's such a fantastic actor, and makes me want to go watch broadcast news right now.
Oh, and she had Saving Grace back in 2007 also, which was, she was Grace, and it was a pretty long run for that. So, TV, she's just busy, and always somebody who I have enjoyed. And, whether it's her comedy stuff or whether she jumps into this sort of project. So,
have you watched any of Mr. Mayor?
No, I haven't seen any of her TV.
Well, this is the one this is Ted Danson's show after Good Place is Mr. Mayor, and so it's kind of I haven't watched any of it, but my take on it is sort of a Parks and Recs kind of a style of a show. I may be speaking wildly out of class, but I think it bodes well. And I have to say, I didn't even know she was in it until started looking at credits for the people in this movie. And so it intrigues me. It makes me want to go watch it even more.
Her character's name is Arpy.
Yeah.
It's an interesting name.
Yep.
Well, she's fantastic. It's hard to not love her. But how about the girls?
Yeah. How about the girls? I feel like it's maybe we take a little sidebar and talk about getting this movie written, because this I think is fascinating. Quite
interesting. Really is.
Yeah. So apparently Nikki Reed, who was 13 at the time, who plays Evie, I'm not entirely sure how she connected with Hardwicke. Are they family friends? Were they in a movie? Did they do a movie together? Was it because Twilight was after this?
They are. They have. She calls Nikki her surrogate daughter. She's known her since she was 5.
Okay, so they sat down to write.
Because I guess she was in a long-term relationship with her father for a while, and that's kind of how they came to know.
All right. So they sat down to write what was supposed to be a comedy project, coming-of-age project, and they were going to shoot it on video with a very, very low budget, and it was just going to be a fun project for them to work on together, and then it came off the rails, and it became what it became. As I understand it, it was this Nikki's experience of watching one of her friends get arrested for dealing meth. She was actually in the real story. She was the Tracy character, but that's what the Evie character would always say, right? I mean, really. And so she is, but she sat down and with Catherine as a 13-year-old, they together wrote this script and telling the story of Nikki's essentially, fictionalized real life experience of being the Tracy in this story. And it became a much harder edged story and became something that Catherine wanted to make a little bit bigger deal about.
I think it's interesting because Reed did say later, when she looked back on it in a kind of a retrospective, that she felt that she portrayed her family the way she did because she made it a little too autobiographical. And as a 13-year-old, that's probably, write what you know sort of mentality.
Yeah.
But she apologized later saying, how dare I portray my father as being a totally vacant, careless schmuck? Like she looked back on her views as the kind of that child perspective and realized, there were probably other ways to look at this stuff that she didn't realize because she was only 13, and so had a very particular point of view. But I think that is also one of the things that makes it strong, is that it really does feel like it is from this point of view that you don't see very often. It's very interesting to get that perspective. And I was kind of shocked when the credit popped up at the end because I hadn't looked beforehand that Catherine Hardwicke directed it and co-wrote it with Nikki Reed, who played her. I was like, what? Really? Wow. No wonder. Okay. That makes sense. So yeah, very interesting.
It deals with a couple of things that, obviously it deals with a lot of really hard things. One of the things I think is most interesting was cutting. And, she does cut herself. And that is I don't understand how it started, but it is something that, when we actually have very, very close friends who have dealt with this with their daughter in a very similar fashion to what we see here with Tracy and her experience, locking herself in the bathroom, getting out the razor blade, cutting her arm. Have you ever run into any of this?
I haven't, no. And, but I know it is a real thing. It's a challenging thing. And I shouldn't say no. I mean, I had friends, I knew kids who were doing it when I was in school, when I was in junior high. But it wasn't something that I've dealt with in my own circles. Since I've become a parent. So, but it's also one of those things. It's like, you never know when it's going to start and how do you keep track of it, and it's just one of those things.
It's used really interestingly in the movie too, because it demonstrates the length of the struggle that Tracy has been having. My assumption is that Mel knew about Tracy's cutting before. Her skin is largely healed, just scarred.
Well, and it was like beforehand, like when we see her first do it, it's with the kind of the nail trimming scissors. Yeah. And it's more, she's doing some cutting, but also there's just, like when we see the scars, there was a lot of pokes, like she had just almost been like poking. And so it wasn't quite like those lines that you would more telltale, it was just those pokes, which are a little easier to hide, I suppose.
Right. So that's one of the things that I think is an interesting bit of narrative. So she's been doing some of this experimentation with cutting, and it gets very, very serious when she, when she becomes less stable as a result of her relationship with Evie and Mom and all of that. It's hard. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch. The level of detail they show, the close-up that they show is hard to watch. But the other one that they don't actually show, which I think the movie does quite poorly, is the tongue piercing. Andy, have you ever been close to somebody after they have gotten their tongue pierced?
No. I went with somebody to get their nose pierced, and that was the only time that I've done that, and don't want to do it again because it was horrifying. And she nearly crushed my hand as she went through the process. So.
Well, the tongue is an interesting one, and I think it I don't know, it's rough in the context of the movie. My sister-in-law came out to Portland and was staying with us and went out and got her tongue pierced. And Andy, it was, let's just say, not the kind of thing you could just talk without opening your mouth very wide and get away with not showing Mom, because the tongue swells, Andy. The tongue swells big. You can't speak normally with a fresh tongue pierce. You can't eat. She was losing weight. She was for a significant amount of time, the tongue pierce was a serious thing. I don't know if her experience was, not in alignment with the rest of the world. Maybe there was, I don't know, was she somehow naturally swollen because of weird infection? I don't know, but it seemed like a healthy thing that just naturally is incredibly damaging to the tongue. And I thought that the movie's sort of hand wavy, like, just don't talk, she'll never find out, was too much to be believed.
Well, saying that was not too much, because that's exactly what my sister-in-law did when she got her tongue pierced. She's like, well, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut so they don't see it. Like, that's the mentality people have.
Yeah, that's the mentality. But you can't like talk to somebody who has fresh tongue piercing and not know something's wrong with your mouth.
Yeah, I think that there's something to that, but I think that there is an element to youth healing quicker. Like, I know when I had my tonsils out as an adult, they said, this would have been better to do when you were a kid, because you would heal in like less than a day, and you probably wouldn't, other than eating ice cream, you wouldn't notice. But as an adult, it's going to be 2 weeks. And it was 2 weeks
Yeah, it
of
was
torture.
2 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. But as a kid, I mean,
so
you
you're
do
saying
heal
the
quicker.
miraculous healing powers of youth.
Yeah, I think that there's something to that.
Is what makes the movie believable.
Well, yeah, I don't end up having an issue with it. I think that it probably doesn't work as well when they're, picked up and she's like, I mean, she doesn't seem like she's trying to say, oh, my tooth hurts, I got a sore tooth, or anything. Like, she's acting totally normal.
Yes.
I think that she could have done something to fake it a little bit, but, yeah.
Yeah. The belly button, that was good too. That was another piercing. And again, either of the piercings, they don't actually show the piercing part. They do, like, something goes awry with the piercing in the belly button piercing in bed. But I was never quite clear, like, what that was, because the next time we see the result of it.
Well, she poked it wrong, but she actually says that because Nikki did actually poke her in the stomach. And so that's why she says that. And so they left that in. But it was, I mean, obviously in the film, neither of them, Evan and Rachel Wood had a magnetic tongue one and then the clip-on belly button one. Although Nikki did have an actual tongue ring, but it was tough things to watch. I mean, my sister asked me to help her pierce her ear once, and let me just say, it didn't go well. And so I can imagine doing that on a belly button and trying to make that work. And you're
an accessory to piercing?
Failed piercing.
Oh,
failed
Andy.
Piercing. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just like, get some ice cubes and a needle. It'll be fine. Yeah, let's just say.
Don't do it.
It wasn't. It
wasn't fine.
No, it was awful. No.
I think it's good that you say that Nikki had an actual tongue ring, because that actually, knowing that she wrote the story about her being the role of Tracy, of course she has a tongue ring. She would have gotten the tongue ring when she was living the experience.
Yeah, probably.
Not bad. Believable.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I really, there are a lot of difficult things portrayed here. I mean, there's a lot of, underage sex and getting together with people that I think was difficult to watch, but I think it was all handled in a way that worked in context of the story. But all of it really services this story of watching Tracy go down this dark road, and with Evie manipulating her and Mel. And, you can see that her brother Mason, Tracy's brother Mason, kind of sees what's going on and tries to say things to get help for her, but nobody really is listening. Like, mom never quite sees it. Dad certainly doesn't. And that was interesting, because I loved that scene when Mason actually tells Dad, she needs help, Dad. And Dad's just not there. And then he's just like, whatever. And wow. Some strong stuff, the way that these things were portrayed. I thought it was...
I'm trying to think of what that would be called, because like when Mason says whatever, that's a kind of thing with it that makes me stop and think about the trouble that they're having communicating. Like, is it believable that the son wouldn't actually finish the sentence with Dad? Like, Dad, you have to help. You have to help. Why? Somebody tell me why. Just tell me why. And the son doesn't say, because she's falling apart, she's high, and she's hanging out with this terrible person. Like, the son walks away, and that felt like incomplete script writing. Like, it just...
No.
It felt incomplete to me. Yeah.
See, it works so well for me, because this is this moment where he realizes how clueless Dad is. Like, Dad doesn't see anything. And when Brady says something like that, it's a kid looking to his parent to say, like, what do I need to do? How can I help? But I mean, But dad just like attacks him with this response, like, God, why won't people just talk to me? You know, and I don't know. To me, that spoke so strongly about dad's inability to connect with this family and to keep putting this wall up. Like he's the way that he says whatever it was that he said, like instantly told Mason is just like, no matter what you say, it's not going to be enough. I'm not going to invest in this because you people just are nothing but trouble and no one will just say it. And it turns into this thing like, bring it to me. Like he's not going to actively try to get involved. He's passively saying, unless someone says something to me, like, and so I don't know. I think Mason sees that. His dad just doesn't want to do it. He's looking for excuses.
I feel like we kind of saw a different movie in that scene. I felt like this was the dad finally saying, like, I hear that you say there's a problem, but nobody has told me what the problem is. And without the problem, I'm going to go back to work. And nobody steps up to actually tell him in clear words at any point, there is a problem and here's what it is.
Should the dad have to try to get that out of a 14 or 15-year-old boy? Like, that's nonsense. No.
Yes. Yes.
No, you're asking a child to be as wise and able to have that conversation as an adult. And that's not fair to Mason. Mason said,
no. I'm not asking a child. I'm asking the script. I'm asking the script to give me a clear demonstration to dad. And I think the reason is because the dad is supposed to be a secondary character in the movie or a tertiary character in the movie, but someone needs to have the conversation with the dad. And Holly Hunter didn't do it. And Mason has the opportunity at the end and he doesn't do it. Let's say I totally agree with you that it's unfair to tell this 14 or 15-year-old kid to do that. Fine. The script lets us down by not letting the dad in. And that's not believable. I don't believe the dad is written as a character that is as laissez-faire as you're portraying him. I believe the dad is out working hard to try to keep everybody afloat through their separation and divorce, and things are in chaos, and he just doesn't know. And the script doesn't give him an opportunity, which is fair strategy if that's the story you want to tell, but it's not believable to me.
Well, I mean, according to Nikki, she did not write the dad in a fair way. So, I mean, to your point, I think that there is some of that she kind of purposefully wrote him that way. And I think that would be her decision to have portrayed him as this guy who doesn't do that. But I do think that Mel has said a number of times, we see her on that phone call with him, and he doesn't seem active in a way where he's wanting to figure stuff out. When he talks to Tracy, he's disengaged. He does not engage in the conversation with the one person who he needs to engage with, who's everyone's saying she's having a problem. And that's on him. That is 100% on him.
I agree that part is on him, but at no point do we get a sense that Mel has ever, in the course of things falling apart, been clear and had a clear discussion about the exact evidence that she's been having. She lets him off around every corner, right? She lets him off on every phone call. And she does that, I think, narratively, because she needs to use those calls as a way to further separate Tracy and Mel. Like, I get that.
I think that there's an element to that I think speaks to family dynamics in a divorce. And I think that there's an interesting relationship that we have between Mel and her ex that comes out when we have that moment when we have Mel on the phone and she's seeking help. She's trying to figure out, like, she's going down this dark road. I don't know what to do. And we see that Tracy's standing outside listening in, like, oh, she's actually talking to dad seriously about this. And then it turns out to just be her sponsor. And that was almost like Mel showing that she's incapable of having the conversation that she needs to with her ex. Like, she can have the conversation with her sponsor. That's not who Tracy needs for her to have that conversation with. She needs her to have that actual same conversation, but with dad, but she won't. And that's, I think, a side effect that you end up getting oftentimes in divorces, in situations like this. I can see that, that pinpointing all of this on the script is something that you could easily do. But I also think it can be that these characters struggle with this. And this is part of the reason that all of these relationships are failing. And that's why I think it's interesting. And I guess I just don't have as many issues with it as you do, because I can see that it can be the way that these people end up behaving.
Yeah, I guess it can. I guess I'm more on team Nikki that I just believe, and it blows up for me when we have the opportunity for Mason and he walks away, because I do believe that Mason has shown throughout the film that he is much more willing to tell on Tracy and to do these things to out the behavior that she's doing, and then when he has the chance to actually do it with Dad, he doesn't, and I feel like that is actually a knock on the script, because I just don't believe that he wouldn't. I don't believe that he wouldn't. But once I start pulling that back, it really is like there's a dad. I see the dad through the sort of lenticular postcard of I guess more optimism, that he's a guy who who would have been more engaged had he been given the opportunity to be more engaged. And that's I get that that's my sort of POV, but it just feels like incomplete to me. So it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
So, but he's also a very, very small part, and the overall architecture of the movie is around these women and their relationship with one another, right? It's a mostly female cast. We do have the boyfriend, who I think is, speaking of complexity, I think he's fantastic. We don't get a whole lot out of him. He's mostly there, but the final sort of confrontation, he has a moment that is a highlight in the movie when he's changing the sheets because he's trying to step up because the other little girl was sleeping in the bed and wet the bed, or the dog wet the bed, somebody wet the bed, and they had the confrontation in Tracy's bedroom, and Tracy insults him again horribly, and we get to see him perform. Like, I felt like that was such a wonderful moment of his restraint that spoke volumes in his simply walking out of the room and closing the door. I thought that was really good. I like him a lot, Sisto.
Sisto?
Sisto.
He should play the Cisco Kid.
He should.
But they'd call it the Sisto Kid.
They would. That's what they would do.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Or Captain Sisto on Deep Space Nine.
Oh, okay. There you go.
He could be that. He could have been that in a remake.
He's an actor that I definitely like. Hasn't been in. I definitely like him, but he also hasn't been in a ton of things that I have watched over the years. He's just kind of pops in periodically. I think more than anything, my father-in-law loves him right now because of the FBI TV show that he's in, which he's been on for a number of years. But yeah, he's great. I think that he's great in his part. It's interesting because until that scene, he really wasn't given a whole lot to do. He's just kind of the loser boyfriend that Tracy has issues with, because I don't know, there was that. There's actually a flashback that we have very briefly in the film. And I was trying to figure out what was going on in that flashback. Was he she walks into the kitchen and he's smoking crack in the kitchen? Was there something else that had happened in there too? Did you see anything else, or was that it?
Well, I felt like he was with Mom. Mom was in there too, and they were doing some sex stuff and some drug stuff, and everybody was in there because it was Mom who gets up off the ground and closes the door.
Okay.
In that flashback.
Okay. Yeah. I for some reason, and then I was like, was there an overdose or something? I couldn't really tell because it was cut very quickly. But yeah, I think that's probably just it, that it was her memory of where he had taken Mom. And now Mom was on her road trying to recover. He clearly was still having issues, although it seemed like he's trying to recover. It's really only that last moment that you just talked about where he gets pushed across the line by Tracy and has to leave the house because he has to go get high. It's just, he's gone too far now. And he's like, I can't handle it anymore. This place makes me crazy. And so he left, and then comes back later barefoot. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a we're going to just lay it all out here, kind of a resolution to did he go see his sponsor, or did he go get high? And then he shows up with his shirt open and his feet bare, and he says, "Nice car." He goes inside and brings her that little collapsible donkey toy, which I thought was
the little kitty cat.
Was it a cat? I don't know.
It's
cute.
The red and black cat. Yeah.
It
was a fun little moment. So yeah, I like Jeremy Sisto.
Yeah.
And Brady Corbett, we didn't mention, was the brother. And he's he's one of those young actors. He started here, did a lot of movies, and I think more now. He's moved into kind of the other side of his career as a writer-director, doing projects like Vox Lux, which Steve and JJ talked about over on Trailer Rewind.
Yeah, that's a good one. He's an interesting character. I think we also, the other one we have is Charles Duckworth as one of the friends, and he's been on a number of things. He's another one of those faces on a lot of television. We just watched him in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer around here. So it was timely to see him on both of these things, but he's been in all the TV, so much TV.
Although not since 2009. Like, his TV stuff has really dropped completely off, and now, even since then, it's mostly just a couple recent movies. Like, he hasn't done, he's really dropped out of the industry for the last decade.
Which is too bad. I like him.
Yeah, he was fine. I mean, he wasn't in it much. He played Javi, the boy that both girls end up hooking up with.
Yeah,
at various points in the story.
Speaking of both girls hooking up, where do you stand on our lifeguard in distress?
Luke?
It was weird.
Kip Pardue?
Yeah.
It was interesting. I think that was an interesting element of the way that the story evolves, with these two girls wanting to not really, Tracy looks at him as like, he's Luke. He's the guy who lives next door.
Yeah.
And Evie, of course, is like, let's go. He's got his own place. His parents left it to him. This is perfect. And it turns into this, it really becomes the dark side and the flip as they kind of come onto him in this way. And, good for him. He's like, you know what, you're jailbait, get out of here. And he kicks them out, and then he moves. He sells the house.
Yeah.
As we see later.
He sells the house.
It was an interesting resolution of his character. And, but it sets an interesting thing. And this might be a good time to start talking about kind of the way the film is put together, because what I found so interesting is Hardwicke chose to play with the color in the film, in the color treatment. And the film starts off a little more muted in its colors. And once she connects with Evie, the colors just pop. It becomes very explosive in the colors. After this point, when they're in Luke's place, the colors slowly start draining out. And by the time she's at her bottom, when you have that confrontation between the two moms and the two daughters in the house, it's just like nothing but kind of like cold blues and everything. And it's not. And then after that, of course, once you have that moment where Mel stays with Tracy and says, "I'm here for you," and is going to help her, that you have the color come back into the film. And so it's really interesting the way that she did that throughout, kind of playing with the color to kind of emphasize this, the state of mind that we have Tracy in.
Yeah, right. I thought so too. I thought it was very cool, especially, but when to me, it was so subtle that it just, I realized we were essentially in black and white as they're, huddling on the floor of the kitchen. She says, I love you and your brother, and I'll that fantastic moment where she's like, I'm not leaving. It was essentially black and white. And I thought I did not see it happening around me until right then, and I realized that all the life had been sucked out of Tracy at that moment. Using color to demonstrate, that cerebral, emotional, and physical low was so cool.
That was something like, as a first-time filmmaker. And she came from the world of production design, so it completely makes sense. And she worked with people on films like Three Kings. The filmmaking style in that has such an interesting look, like the color treatment that David O. Russell applied throughout that film to make it so stark. Like, it makes sense that she's been in the industry long enough where she thinks about these things and like, how do I use these tools? And because like even the editing, the way that she was capturing the scenes and everything, like with the kind of just the different editing styles and the way that she would kind of like use jump cuts and kind of speed footage up and kind of do the stutter frames and stuff like that. Like it was so fascinating to watch. Like clearly she's like infusing this film with this style that had like this manic 13-year-old energy. And that was something that I found so exciting just in the way that she decided to kind of infuse this story that was co-written by a 13-year-old with that same energy. And it just like, I was so impressed with what she brought to the table right out of the gate as a filmmaker. It was very exciting.
It was super energetic framing, energetic camera. Love that she's willing to experiment so deeply with color and tone. I thought it was great.
Very exciting stuff. Mark Mothersbaugh did the music. Of course, he's just always fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Although I have to say, nothing really jumped out at me, and I didn't really notice it was Mark Mothersbaugh until at the end of the movie, and I think I probably need to go back and listen to it.
Probably the same for me.
Yeah.
The only other thing that I thought was interesting was costume-wise, they actually had the girls largely wearing their own clothes for the film, and over the course of the film, they actually said that the two girls started dressing like each other. And that's not something that Hardwicke ever talked to them about. It's just they slowly started moving into similar styles. And I think that speaks to when young girls hang out with each other a lot, they kind of meld into each other. It's very interesting.
That's funny. That's really funny. Have you spent a lot of time with Evan Rachel Wood's work?
You know, I always enjoy her. She's, and she, this episode is very timely because, her new documentary miniseries is on HBO right now. Was it Phoenix Rising, I believe, that kind of a docu-series about her and her struggle with kind of coming out with her own abuse that she had suffered with Marilyn Manson and kind of coming to terms with that. And I haven't watched it, but I do find her to be a very interesting actress. And this wasn't her first film. She had been, one of your favorites. She was in Simone the year before. But she's an actress who I really enjoy seeing on screen because she portrays such interesting characters. I don't know if I have seen enough of her stuff. I'm curious to see, like, she's going to be in the Weird Al Yankovic movie and she's playing Madonna. So it'll be interesting. I enjoy watching her. I think that she's a strong actress. And I'm curious, like, once she's through with this stuff with the Phoenix Rising and kind of like getting through, kind of like finding herself on the other side of dealing with that trauma, what are the types of stories she's going to continue telling?
I spent naturally a lot of time with her in Westworld, which she's fantastic as Dolores Abernathy. I have not.
Oh, she's like lives on the Old West, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I watched like the first episode of that. I remember seeing her, but I didn't get far.
Well, I haven't gotten much further into her. I saw Running with Scissors when it came out. The Wrestler, she's fantastic. But I have not seen, like, I'm looking at her catalog and I have not seen nearly enough of her stuff. But she, she's one of those where she was already an accomplished actor when she made 13. How old was she when she made 13? So she was born in 87.
They were both 14. Yeah, it said that she and Nikki were both 14 and Nikki turned 15 during the production.
Yeah. Crazy. Just demonstrates crazy depth that these girls are able to sort of conjure at that age, for this film. I mean, it was it's pretty good work. Nice work if you can get it.
Really astounding. What's your background with Catherine Hardwicke, the director? Are you Hardwicke head?
You're a hard head.
Hard head?
You're just hard head. Yeah, that's weird. Not enough, probably. I think so much of the stuff that I'm really celebrating of her is just the movies that I love from her production design days. Like, I don't think I would be rough to have this conversation without mentioning again Tombstone and Tank Girl. Like, talk about someone who is able to conjure some incredible, a variety of tones and textures in the production design of those movies. But she's done so much. I've seen Twilight, and I recognize.
We'll be talking about Lords of Dogtown in our next series.
Yep. That's
the
coming.
Nativity story unfortunately suffered a lot of controversy when that came out because of the pregnancy of Keisha Castle Hughes getting pregnant when she wasn't married, which for the story being told, I think made a lot of difficulty on the press tours with that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Twilight was kind of where she was able to kind of make a bigger splash for herself, but I don't think it helped her too much. She didn't end up doing any of the Twilight sequels, ended up in other people's hands. And then she did Red Riding Hood, which largely was panned.
Have you seen it? I haven't seen it.
I haven't. Well, it's in our 2011 list of films that are 10 years old, so maybe we'll add it at some point. Gary Oldman, Lucas Haas, so definitely some interesting faces in that. And then, like, the rest of the stuff, like, I don't know much about. Plush, Miss You Already, Miss Bala. She's currently in post on Prisoner's Daughter, and then she's filming Tell It Like a Woman. She's got Mafia Mama and Heathen in pre-production. So she's very busy. I love that she's keeping so busy. I'm curious to actually visit more of her films to see, if any of them, if I connect with any of them.
Yeah. I'm most intrigued right now about Miss Bala. It feels like one that I like Gina Rodriguez a lot, and it just feels like a kind of, one of our women action hard asses or badasses, and I don't know. It's unfortunate it doesn't get over the 6-star line. It's a 5.8 on IMDb right now, which makes me sad. But that's one that seems like it might be right up my alley.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, overall, good stuff.
Yeah, definitely somebody. I'm curious to kind of watch a few more of her things. I don't know if it's a filmography. I'm like, I got to see all of this stuff. But, I'm curious to check out more of her work.
Well, and again, Dogtown coming up.
Yep, Lords of Dogtown in our next series.
Very excited about that.
All right, well, we will be right back. But first, our credits.
The Next Reel is a production of True Story FM, engineering by Andy Nelson. Music by Field of Giants, Oriel Novella, and Eli Catlin. Andy usually finds all the stats for the awards and numbers at the-numbers.com, boxofficemojo.com, imdb.com, and wikipedia.org. Find the show at truestory.fm, and if your podcast app allows ratings and reviews or stars or shares or notes, please consider doing all that for our show. How to do it award season, Andrew.
Got some notice. First up, Holly Hunter did receive a nomination for Best Actress in a Supporting Role at the Academy Awards. Now, I have a question for you about this because I want to find out what, let's just say Renee Zellweger won for Cold Mountain. Mm-hmm. Also nominated Marcia Gay Harden, Mystic River, Patricia Clarkson, Pieces of April, and Shohreh Aghdashloo for House of Sand and Fog. Of those, now that I've seen this, and so this was the last of the films I needed to see to look at all of those, I think I would absolutely pick Holly Hunter for my choice. And then Patricia Clarkson, Pieces of April, probably second. Renee Zellweger is fine, but is a big performance and everything. It just didn't stand out. And that film has largely been forgotten. I don't think anybody talks about Cold Mountain anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I totally agree. This is a Holly Hunter thing.
The question I have for you is, do you think that Evan Rachel Wood and or Nikki Reed should have been nominated? Evan, I would assume, as Best Actress and Nikki Reed as supporting. Would you boot anybody and add Nikki in that list that we just went through?
Well, the question is, would you boot Holly Hunter? Right?
I would absolutely not boot Holly Hunter.
And that's the thing. Could that be why they didn't, they didn't work harder to get a nomination for either of the girls? I do think that Evan Rachel Wood would have merited a nomination in this movie. It's a hard movie, and she did a fantastic job. But would you want to put both of these women in that category?
Well, I would put Evan in Best Actress.
I mean, they didn't win either, but wouldn't you just guarantee that they, wouldn't have, neither would have won?
Well, but you're putting if I put Nikki in as supporting
and Evan as, let's say Evan as Best Actress with Holly Hunter too.
Well, let's come back to that. No, I wouldn't put Holly Hunter's supporting actress.
Oh,
that's what she was nominated for.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
She was So she would be up against Nikki, and I would still pick Holly Hunter over Nikki.
Yes, agreed.
But I would put Nikki in over Renee Zellweger.
Yes.
And she's the one who won.
Yes, I agree with that. All of
and,
that.
Marcia Gay Harden, Mystic River, I don't know.
Mystic River is another one that just sort of evaporated for me.
Yeah, everyone loves that movie. Just did nothing for me. I wasn't very excited by it. The other one, so let's go to Best Actress now. So we're talking about Evan Rachel Wood. Does she fit in with this lineup? Charlize Theron won for Monster. Diane Keaton was nominated for Something's Gotta Give. Keisha Castle-Hughes nominated for Whale Rider. Naomi Watts in 21 Grams. Samantha Morton in America.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't seen Something's Gotta Give, so I can't speak to that one. But and it goes in. That one falls into that comedy lineup of like, is the comedy performance as strong as a drama performance? Because I can easily use that reasoning to drop Diane Keaton and to add Evan Rachel Wood. Without having seen it, I don't know if it's completely fair, but like those other performances all are incredibly strong. I don't know. I guess if I dropped one, it would be Naomi Watts in 21 Grams, and I'd put Evan Rachel Wood in instead. I think between those two strong performances, I'd prefer Evans.
Yeah, me too. I haven't seen, what was the In America?
In America?
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Oh, that's an amazing film.
Is it? But still
amazing.
Not one that you'd consider for in this conversation?
To have Samantha Morton win? I wouldn't drop Samantha her. Morton. Absolutely not drop her.
That was my question. Would you drop her in favor of?
No. I would 100% not. No, I would either drop Diane Keaton. I would drop Diane Keaton, but I haven't seen the film. So I just feel so of the ones that I have seen, I would drop Naomi Watts. I would not drop Samantha Morton, who I almost would pick as my winner of the choices. She was so strong in that film.
Fantastic. Oh, well, I need to see it right away.
It's hard to go up against Charlize Theron in Monster, but I know some people argue that, she's just wearing makeup and she's ugly, so she wins. It was still a damn fine performance. So
yeah, it's a fine performance. Okay.
So anyway, that's the Oscars. Over at the Independent Spirit Awards, the film won. Actually, Nikki Reed won Best Debut Performance for that film. It was nominated for Best First Feature and Best First Screenplay. The film lost to Monster for Best First Feature. They're both very difficult films to watch.
Very difficult.
And very interesting portrayals of women and relationships, directed by women. Boy, that's a tough call. I probably would pick 13, but I don't know if it's completely fair. As for Best First Screenplay, it went to The Station Agent instead of 13 and Monster. In that case, I would pick The Station Agent. I really connected with that script and found it worked exceptionally. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on those?
I actually now I suddenly can't think of The Station Agent. Maybe I didn't see that. Oh, right. I didn't see that. Peter Dinklage,
Patricia Clarkson, Bonnie Cannavale.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. Oh my God, it's so good.
Man, this is hard. It's really hard. I think I don't know. I'm a fan of Monster, legit. Like, I think everybody in there is wonderful. And again, you're right. It's such a hard film, but I think overall, I might stick with 13 for what these two young women are able to do together. I think it's
I'd have to go back and watch Monster again. I haven't seen it since the theater in 2003, so it's been some time.
Christina Ricci is. I mean, we talk a lot about Charlize Theron, but Christina Ricci is also
as do the characters in this film.
Yeah, right.
Interesting. Hey, this is a side note. What was up with the fake movie posters for the Jack Black and John Cusack movies?
I know, that was so funny.
I was like, Catherine must know them or something in order to allow them to kind of use their names and likenesses, but not any movies that they actually had permission to use, because those were just like terrible movie posters.
So good. So good.
Oh my! All right.
So that's it for the awards. That's it.
That's it for the awards. Yeah.
Good. All right. So then, tell me about the money. Did it? This was supposed to be a direct video, little comedy project, coming of age project. Ended up being something worth something. How'd it do?
Something worth something. That's right. Hardwicke had a really hard time getting the money for this because she would talk to a lot of people and they're like, ooh, this is not the sort of film that has any home anywhere, because it's, teen self-destruction and all this stuff. And like, how do we find an audience for this? So she really struggled. Eventually, she got Holly Hunter to sign on, and that helped her get the money. That became a legit project. So she ended up getting $2 million to make the movie. That's about $2.8 million in today's dollars. The movie premiered at Sundance in 2003, then had a limited release starting August 20th, 2003, opposite Freddy vs. Jason, Open Range, Uptown Girls, Grind, American Splendor, and Passionada. The film only opened on 2 screens and didn't make much of a dent until it got some good reviews, which was enough to crack the top 20 in week 3. The movie went on to earn $4.6 million domestically and $5.5 million internationally for a total of $14 million in today's dollars. That puts the film at an adjusted profit per finished minute of almost $113,000. That's a good start for Hardwicke.
Yes, it is. It's a good start and makes next movie easier.
Absolutely.
I think it's... how do you think this stacks up as an actual coming-of-age film?
Well, I think that over the course of this semester...
Like, what is the age that is come of?
I think it's learning to get through all of this, and that family will support you, and it's that growth of the mother-daughter relationship, and that finding that trust, and figuring out there are dark roads that can lead to devastation and ruin, but the right person is there to help you. And so I think there's a lot of lessons learned for Tracy over the course of this film, and she's able to kind of get herself back on track with the help of her mother.
I think so too, and
that was like such a great ending for the film, like seeing her on the merry-go-round, because one, it's a merry-go-round, which is just one of those things. It's just like life; it just kind of keeps coming around and around. But it also is so childlike, and it felt for me like she's back in kind of like a safer mindset now.
I feel like it's like there are coming of age movies that allow us to come of age through pain and learn the lessons of growth through pain and hardship. And that's very much what this one is. And there are coming of age films that do it through comedy and, really leaning in on the awkwardness of what it means to grow up and get through puberty and learn important lessons, but do it through humor. And
which we saw in Slums of Beverly Hills, right?
Which we saw in Slums of Beverly Hills, absolutely. And that is actually the sort of counter. And I know we can talk more about this in our retake on this series, but this is one of those movies that marks a high point for me, just in terms of having these performers be able to do hard things believably, and not make it feel like the actual come of age part at the end is unearned. I found it believable at the end. I found it believable. I liked it more, for more stuff than I didn't like. I found it believable.
Yeah, it's definitely a film that was strong in its portrayal of this life for this girl and the decisions she was making in it. And that made it very challenging. It was a very, very challenging watch.
Yeah.
Very uncomfortable. But the way that it unfolded, and especially once we got to the end, because honestly, I'll tell you, when we see her, she can't find her scissors to cut with. And so she instead decides to use a razor blade. And then it seems like she can't stop the bleeding. And I was like, and then it blacks out. I'm like, oh my God, is she going to wake up in the hospital?
Yeah.
Like mom found her and she was dying. Like, what happened here? And then it just cuts to, she's back and everything's normal. But that speaks to like that dark place where she could be going. She's switched to something that's much less safe and doesn't necessarily use it properly. I was convinced that it was going to go to a much darker place. And so it's a very challenging film because it has these things that you see these young girls doing. it was very hard, but I was incredibly impressed with the strength at which it was portrayed. It's just not an easy film to watch.
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back for our ratings. But first, here's the trailer for next week's movie, Diary of a Teenage Girl.
My name is Minnie Getz. I'm recording this onto a cassette tape because my life has gotten really crazy of late. I had sex today.
I'm so happy.
If you're listening to this without my permission, please stop now. Just stop.
I'm gonna kill you!
This makes me officially an adult. Do I look different than I did yesterday? Hey. It feels so good to imagine that he might be thinking about me. I wonder if anybody loves me who I don't know about.
This is mon chéri.
I get distracted sometimes, overwhelmed by my all-consuming thoughts about sex and men.
I don't know what's wrong with you. I think you'd be more into boys.
What are you waiting for?
You have a kind of power, you don't know it yet.
I got a girl, she's sweet as can be. All the other boys wanna be like me, and oh, isn't life so
I refuse to be some sniveling crybaby. This is my life.
funny? Isn't life sweet?
I don't want to brag, but it was quite a piece when I was your age.
Run to the mountains, we can sail the Emerald Sea. Drop a coin.
I know nothing's changed, but everything looks totally different to me
True
now.
when I wake up and I see you next to me. It comes true when I wake up and I see you next to me.
This is for all the girls when they have grown.
That brings us to Letterboxd. Andy, how are you going to
Yes.
land your review?
This was a challenge of a movie to watch. As I was watching it, I'm like, this is the worst thing I could ever watch. I am being tortured right now. But as I said, the film, it kind of shifts and becomes this incredibly powerful family story. And it drew me in. It got me. I think I'm going to land at 4.5 stars and a heart.
Okay.
That's where I am.
All right. I as you know, I'm Pete, no half stars. Right. And so I'm going to land at 4 stars. I think there's just enough, just enough stuff in here that I find frustrating. And because you made me yell about the dad, and that's really it. That's a 1-star violation. I hadn't been thinking about it that much, but you made me yell about the dad. And so I have to go back to 4 stars, but that is 4 stars with a strong heart. Strong heart.
Okay. There it is. Well, what did you think about 13? We want to know. Hop into the Show Talk channel over in our Discord community. We're going to be talking about this movie this week.
When the movie ends,
Our conversation begins.
Letterboxd, give it to Andy.
As Letterboxd always do it.
So hard. I can't believe we didn't say this. I'm going first. I can't believe we didn't say this in the course of our conversation. Russman says 3.5 stars. I had to pause the movie for a while and go watch YouTube clips of chickens not moving their heads. That was awesome.
That was
in this movie.
That was.
Chickens and heads.
Did
You're
you
not
see
excited
there-
enough about it.
No, I am very excited. There was actually a credit for the person who had come up with that for the film. I have to find it now. Let me see if they have it. They don't have it labeled in the IMDb credits, which is unfortunate. But yeah, there was actually a special credit for the person who, I don't know if it was an animal wrangler or what, but had come up with a thing where, oh yeah, look, if you do this with the chicken, it won't move his head. Crazy. That was
So
weird. Like, why was that there? Why was there? I guess they had chickens in their backyard.
yeah, they did. They had a whole
Yeah.
coop. They had a coop.
That's right.
Yeah. It's like, what is it that, so now we have this crossover of chickens and cheetahs. What is it about chickens and cheetahs that make it so they can move without moving their heads?
I didn't know that was a crossover. What
I'm saying that there's a
what
Venn diagram of chicken cheetah.
is this a thing? Like, did you just make this up? Like, what?
No, when you watch, no, I'm just talking about like when you watch cheetahs run, their heads don't move, but the rest of their body is going crazy.
I've never noticed that.
Are you kidding? Okay. Well, now I need to start doing my own search for YouTube videos to send you. Chickens and cheetahs. All right, what's yours?
Okay, I've got this 4-star by Grace.
Okay.
I keep forgetting that they were only 13. Like, what? I was trying to jumpstart a homemade bookmark business at 13, not trying drugs.
What Ronja says with the 4 stars, when I was 13, I had a Twitter dedicated to Glee. Thanks, Letterboxd. I'm changing the name of our podcast to Chickens and Cheetahs. Andy, it's hard to believe we've been having weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, you're telling me. Producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
The Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals has links to purchase the source material behind our adapted film discussions. Your purchases there help support the show at no extra cost.
For the entirety of season 11, we featured films directed by women.
The only exceptions were some of our member bonus episodes.
We talked about The Lure for our horror debuts series, which is a very loose adaptation of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen.
Definitely miles from the Disney versions.
For our 10-year anniversary series, we covered We Need to Talk About Kevin, taken from the Lionel Shriver novel.
Man, that was brilliant.
And horrifying.
Yeah. The Journalist series included Merrily We Go to Hell and The Weight of Water, adapted from Anita Shreve's bestseller.
We filled some gaps in previous series with member bonus episodes on adaptations like Malcolm X, Mr. Blandings Builds His Dream House, Cactus Flower, Wild at Heart, Life Force, and The Blues Brothers.
Our John Hurd series looked at a trio of adaptations: Chilly Scenes of Winter from the novel by Anne Beatty, Awakenings based on Oliver Sacks' nonfiction book, and Rambling Rose adapted from the Calder Willingham novel.
2 films in our coming-of-age debut series were adapted from books: The Virgin Suicides from Jeffrey Eugenides, and The Diary of a Teenage Girl, Phoebe Glockner's graphic novel.
We had Queen of Katwe for our sports series based on Tim Crothers' nonfiction book.
And Clueless kicked off our 90s comedy series, loosely adapted from Jane Austen's Emma.
It totally took place in the 90s, though. Find all of these books and more adaptations on our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals.
Start your next read from the movies we've covered. Visit thenextreel.com/originals today.